everybody, it's SlasherDude2000 and Cameron. And tonight, if you guys haven't noticed, I've got a new mask because we are doing the next Halloween movie. Halloween Part 2. Or as most people just call it, 2.
Yes. This film takes place, it was filmed in 1981, 3 years later, but in the film, we pick up right after the events of the first film with, we pick up right after the events of the first film. Laurie is taken to the hospital. Dr. Loomis starts his search around the neighborhood for Michael Myers. Michael Myers finds himself, makes his way to the hospital to hunt down Laurie, and all sorts of killing and mayhem ensue.
Right. This movie was directed by Rick Rosenthal, which I'll get to the reason why later on. It was produced by Deborah Hill, John Carpenter, written by John Carpenter and Deborah Hill. Music is by John Carpenter and Alan Howarth. Cinematography is done by Dean Cundy, just like the last film, and we're getting down to the film locations. 1530 North Orange Grove Avenue, West Hollywood, California is again the Doyle House, if you guys haven't been here for the last movie. Then we have 1536 North Orange Grove Avenue, West Hollywood, California, also known as the Trick or Treat to Death House. Magnolia Lane, South Pasadena, California is the alley behind the Elroy House. 716 Meridian Avenue, South Pasadena, California is the Elroy House. 57 Montecito Court, Sierra Madre is Alice's house. 16111 Plummer Street, Sepulveda, California is Haddonfield Memorial Hospital exterior. 1845 North Fair Oaks Avenue, Pasadena, California is Pasadena Community Hospital, also known as Haddonfield Memorial Hospital interior. And then we have Magnolia and Meridian Avenue, South Pasadena, which is the Bennett Tramer's death. 1537 North Orange Grove, West Hollywood, California, is the Wallace House. Kirsten Court, Sierra Madre, California, is Town Square. 1215 Lottie Place, Hollywood, California, is Smith's Grove Sanitarium. 1000 Mission Street, South Pasadena, is Myers House. 110 West McLean Abraham Alhambra, California, is Haddonfield Elementary. And onto the cast, which, yeah, most of it's the same, but funny thing, a lot of the people from the second movie is from the Beverly Hills Playhouse.
Yes, they went to the same acting class as the director, Rick Rosenthal.
Right. Again, we have Jamie Lee Curtis as Laurie Strode. We have Nicholas Drucker as young Laurie Strode. We have Donald Pleasance back as Sam Loomis. Charles Cyphers as the short-lived Sheriff Lee Brackett. We have Lance Guest as Jimmy, a well-known paramedic that we see throughout the movie. Pamela Susan Shoop, a nurse we see through the... What?
Hold on. Sorry, something's just catching up with me. Did you say that a kid named Nicholas played the young Laurie Strode? Nicholas?
No, Nicole.
Oh, I was like, what? They had a little boy playing young Laurie Strode?
That would be amazing, but sadly no.
Why would that be amazing?
Because a boy would be able to play a girl. So perfectly.
It wouldn't make any logical sense. I mean, what, you're saying Laurie was a boy and then became a woman, or?
Who knows? Pamela Sue Shoop plays Nurse Karen Bailey, one of the Playhouse actors. We have Townie Moyer as Nurse Jill Franco, Anna Alicia as Nurse Janet Marshall, Hunter Von Leer as Deputy Gary Hunter, our police officer of the movie. We have Nancy Steffens as Marie Chambers from the original movie, who made a short cameo in the beginning. We have Dick Warlock as the new Michael Myers, a well-known stuntman from movies like Jaws. We have Adam Gunn as young Michael Myers. We have Gloria Clifford as Nurse Virginia Alvis. Leo Rossi as Buddy Scarlatti, the douche of this movie. We have Ford Rainey as Dr. Friedrich Mixter, the drunk doctor. His last name, funny, is actually similar to what he does. He's a his name is Mixter, and he goes to a lot of mixers.
Ah, that's a great combination there.
Yep. We have Jeffrey Kramer as Graham the dentist, who's seen for a short moment. We have Cliff Emmett as Bernard Garrett, the security guard. We have John Zenda as Marshal Terrence Gummel, a very, very underdone marshal of this movie. We have Annie Berner as Alice Martin, again, a throwaway character from the beginning. Lucille Benson as Miss Elroyd. We never find out Mr. Elroyd's name. We have Catherine Bergstrom as Deborah Lane, the reporter, who is actually killed in the book, but sadly is not killed in the movie. We have Jake Verbis as Ben Tramer, and that's it. The rest is cameos, or dead cameos, of Annie and a few cameos from the friends of Ben Tramer.
Yeah.
On to the kill.
What? Yeah, the slasher stats. We got quite a few more kills in this film compared to the original film. We have 2 that are stabbed, 1 death by explosion, 1 hammer to the head, 1 person strangled, 1 person drowned, 2 deaths by hypodermic needle to the eye, 1 person drained of blood, 1 throat slit, and lastly, 1 death by head trauma, for a total of 10 deaths in this movie.
And most of it done with this lucky scalpel.
Yeah.
On to our favorite kills.
Okay, yeah, go ahead. What was your favorite kill?
Unless you have some more information.
It doesn't fit with favorite kill. I'll bring it up later. So yeah, go ahead.
Okay. Favorite kill. Nurse Karen gets scolded. Actually, this was our only nude scene in this movie, but that's not why I like it. I like the use of a therapeutic hot tub for something that you wouldn't think it would be used for, unless you were very stupid and fell right into it.
Yeah.
And actually, I'd have to say it's almost as good as Jason smashing that girl's face as it was frozen. I mean, literally, this is fire and ice.
Yeah, it's absolutely brutal because, you see the effects of the scalding on her face, the skin starting to, peel off, and he keeps dunking her face in.
As she's screaming, after we see her in there with Bud, and we actually see the meter go up because no one's watching it.
Yes. Yeah, continue. Yeah.
What about you?
It's gonna be funny, but I thought Ben Tramer's death, even though Michael Myers had no control, this was not by his hand at all. It's just crazy. Everything, the car slamming into Ben Tramer and then it just explodes. I just thought it was the most cinematic death in the entire film. But I also liked the claw part of the hammer being slammed right into the front of the security guard's head. There was just, like, you could tell he put his full force into it. Wham! Right into that guy's head.
Right, and actually, isn't it a little reminiscent of something that came after Halloween that we think of this for?
Valentine's Day? No, what?
Friday the 13th.
Which killer are you thinking of?
Part 2, you don't remember? The cop gets hit in the back of the head with the hammer.
My mind is drawing blanks.
It's basically the same kill, and it's done by a cop in that movie, but here it's done in a security guard.
No, I believe you. I can't remember. I have a one movie track mind. I can only remember the kills of the film that I am watching.
I know.
Or I've just recently watched.
Okay, least favorite kill. For me, it would be Nurse Virginia gets drained off screen. I mean, it would have been perfect to watch as it was happening, but they just give us, Jim looking at the body and then slipping on her blood, and we see the IV, and that's it. I mean, we don't see Michael Myers doing it to her. We don't see anything but the end result.
Yeah, actually, that leads right into the thing that I was going to bring up. My least favorite kill, or the way that it was handled, was Jimmy. Jimmy was this really nice guy. I just hate what they did. Yeah, he slipped, he hit his head, and then he shows up for one more scene and then passes out, and we are assumed to believe that he died, unless you know about the original ending that Rick Rosenthal had filmed, which is on the Blu-ray to Halloween 2, which shows Jimmy in the ambulance with Laurie Strode. He's in there with her. He's got bandages around his head, and it ends the film with them together. But because of the production company, Irwin Yablans and Mustafa Khan and all the John Carpenter, they didn't think the ending was dark enough, so they had to just cut that part out. And honestly, I actually think that's bad on them for that. I think the character was really interesting, and if you're going to kill him, at least make it a good kill, not just, oh, he bumped his head and then later he passed in a car.
Right. Again, that's why I don't like Virginia's. I mean, you know how much I hate off-screen kills.
Well, that's part of at least the early part of the Halloween franchise is, in fact, it was Irwin Yablans who said that he didn't like Halloween 2 when he got the script initially because there was too much blood and gore. He said Halloween exists best when it is in the theater of the mind. He thinks that a lot more of the kills should be suggestive instead of being directly shown. And so there are only, I think, 2 or 3 kills that are off screen. Yeah.
Yeah, and actually most of the scenes were also kind of redirected by John Carpenter because he didn't think it was that true to his original vision for a sequel.
Yes. I really do actually feel bad for Rick Rosenthal. It sounded like he was brought on and he was, kind of a new director and like, oh yeah, cool, all gung-ho for the film. I mean, he even brought people that were from his acting class that you mentioned. So you could tell like he was a real team player. And John Carpenter, because he had gone on to do The Fog, he, had split ways or whatever. He had seen what Rick Rosenthal had made and felt like, I'm going to go in and fix it. And he did not consult with Rick Rosenthal at all. There are a lot of scenes that he filmed without Rick Rosenthal even knowing. Like, he didn't know until he went to the premiere.
Right, he was actually very pissed off. One more kill before I get down to the notes, but favorite knife kill, since basically this movie is built on knives, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Nurse Joe gets lifted with a scalpel. I mean, you gotta admit, that was a really good kill. I mean, it shows how strong Michael is. I mean, it basically brought back the idea from the first movie where he kills, Bob.
Yes, I was thinking the same thing. It has the same kind of, it's iconic in a similar way. It's just, it shows, it definitely demonstrates the level of how psychotic Michael Myers is, but then also how brutal he is. So, in the original film, we see him lifting Bob and then pinning him to the wall, and then in this, we just see him with a scalpel hoisting up a nurse, stabbing her in the back and just hoisting her up like that. It's incredible.
Right, and this is coming from a normal human male.
Jesus fucking Christ, stop!
Yeah.
But on to the notes. We have Halloween 2 was said to be the cause of the trial known as People versus Boyer, where Boyer actually was on drugs and he recreated one of the scenes from the movie where Michael Myers is just stabbing away at, I believe it was Alice.
I don't know. So you're saying this, there was a court case where the killer said that this film influenced him?
Right, yeah. It's also known as the Halloween 2 murders.
Well, this film seems like it was cursed.
We're about to get to that soon. Calm down. It had a larger budget than the original film of $2.5 million. Most of the actors, again, were from the Beverly Hills Playhouse. The original sequel was supposed to take place a few years later in Laurie Strode's new apartment. First movie, we find out the connection between Michael and Laurie, which is actually their brother and sister, which sadly we're gonna lose in this upcoming movie in 2018.
Yeah. I felt like that they were hinting at it even in the first film, to be honest, but I guess that's not true.
Right, and basically they had so many clues in the second film, they were literally throwing it at us. Michael stabs a little girl, or a sister in the picture. I want to assume that was Laurie's desk, and yeah. John Carpenter refused to direct the sequel and originally asked Tom Lee Wallace to do it, but Tom denied it, and then he went and found Rosenthal. So sorry, Rosenthal, you weren't the first choice, but you were still the best.
You know what's weird is that Tommy Lee Wallace felt like this movie was a betrayal to the original film, yet he comes back for Season of the Witch, which has nothing to do with the original film. So I think his wallet was getting a little thin, and I think I need to direct a film. So he could afford to pass on Halloween 2. He could not financially pass on Season of the Witch.
Right. This was meant to be the final movie with Michael Myers, but then everyone cried when he wasn't in the third movie, so they brought him back. This was the first Halloween movie to show blood and gore. The song is done in 5/4 time rhythm, and it's actually known to be a lot more gothic in this movie.
Yeah, Alan Howarth, I watched one of the documentaries on the Blu-ray. He was talking about how John Carpenter has his own thing, and he doesn't like anyone touching his equipment. He just likes doing his own music. And so essentially when he was quote-unquote collaborating with John Carpenter, it was John Carpenter made his music, and then Alan Howarth had to take basically whatever John Carpenter created, and then, as he put it, overdubbed it. So he said he added rhythm to the original theme. He kind of basically spiced up the original scoring. So, and we can definitely tell that, as you mentioned, it seems like there is more of an orchestral sound to the soundtrack. It's not just the you know what I mean? Like in the original film,
yeah,
the score is very stripped back.
Right. This movie features Mr. Sandman, performed by the Chordettes, which a lot of people were very controversial about this. They said it didn't really belong in the movie. They felt it was kind of stupid to put in it. But then some claimed it was because Laurie was kind of in that dumbfound state after all she's been through in the first movie and then this movie. So I guess, you wouldn't really hear this kind of music in a horror movie. It's a little too calm.
Well, a lot of horror movies these days will play lighthearted or older music, and they do it ironically. They do it to be like, oh, well, look at the opposite. Like, we're playing this bright or happy or old song, and we're showing you something that's dark and depressing. And so I feel like Halloween 2 kind of started that trend. So I understand. I don't know why folks would consider it controversial, but I feel like it was an important step in horror, in horror history, because yeah, there are just tons of films throughout the 80s and 90s, and especially now in the 2000s, where they play lighthearted music while something horrific is happening, or we're about to get into something horrific.
Right. Actually, now that I'm looking at this note, the movie is actually, it suffered from the lowest rating ever. A 3.1, I believe I read.
Dang, I don't know. I feel bad. I feel bad for, especially for Rick Rosenthal.
Yep. The theme song became more gothic, and Nick Castle didn't return as Michael Myers because he moved on to direct other movies.
Yeah. Do you want to know how Dick Warlock got the position?
How?
So he had already been hired by Deborah Hill, I believe, to be the stunt coordinator. And then he was coming in to do a meeting with Rick Rosenthal. He saw the mask on in Rick Rosenthal's office, put it on, and kind of played a prank, if you will. He went up to a window of the office and was standing there kind of intimidatingly. And Rick Rosenthal got kind of freaked out a little bit. And then, Dick took the mask off, and he kind of was joking around. He's like, so, hey, do you have any objections to me playing the role? And Rick's like, if you can get Deborah to okay it, then you can do it. And she said okay. So he basically played a little bit of a prank with the mask, and that got him the part.
Wow, such a good way to actually become a killer.
Yeah.
Actually, there's a huge theory based on the Michael Myers, costume and character. It's actually said that there's never been one actor to play Michael Myers. I mean, you saw Nick Castle didn't play the second one. Dick Warhol's not in the fourth one. We definitely know that much. So basically it's known as the Halloween curse. Yeah, so sadly we won't see Dick Warlock for a while until we maybe do the Jaws series.
Yeah, before I forget, a lot of people, because I just watched it last night, so it's fairly fresh in my mind. For those that watch our videos regularly, I constantly forget the movies we are talking about. But I noticed the mention of the Druids by Dr. Loomis in this film. They talk about the constellations, the important, what the Druids have to do with, the
Sam Hain?
with the Halloween season. Anyways, the point I'm getting at is the theory, the whole arc of the cult of Thorn. A lot of folks say, "Oh, that was started in part 4." I actually think the seeds for it were planted in this film. There was a whole mention, Dr. Loomis in this film was all about exposition. He was constantly describing either the psychology of Michael Myers, or they were talking about the legends of Halloween, and so he definitely set the stage for that, I believe, in this film, not part 4.
Well, actually, it wasn't Loomis that placed the seeds. It was actually Michael Myers, if you pay attention. Technically, it was mentioned on the board as we see the word Samhain, which is the holiday celebrated by the Druids, the Celtic Druids, to be exact.
Yeah, yes. So that starts it, and then later on, when Dr. Loomis is talking to Marion Chambers on the way to the car, he's talking about just I guess basically the history of the Druids and their celebration or rituals of Halloween. So
Right. Oh, I just realized there are a lot of back scenes for horror movies, like one of my favorites, Night of the Living Dead, in the background of the Elroyd house.
yeah, I think in the first Halloween, most of the video footage was from the original The Thing, and then this one was Night of the Living Dead.
And something I can really put next to you, as I should say, Dementia, which is also the name of the movie that the security guard was watching.
Oh, yeah, I actually really love that scene where the music from Dementia is like playing over it, but we're looking at the CCTV footage of Michael like sneaking into the hospital. I thought that was a really just a small little scene, but I thought it was shot really well.
Yes, very well. I mean, this movie, I don't really see why it's so hated, other than, it's had some bad moments. A lot of people don't like the music, some parts of the movie, but this was actually one of the better sequels.
I think when we get to part 6, we're going to have kind of a similar discussion, because I feel like the biggest problem with this film was you could tell that there was interference from, you know what I mean? Like there was an unevenness to the film. The first half of the film has just, I don't know. I don't know how to explain it actually. But part 6 had a lot of problems too. There were a lot of hands, in the pot, if you will. A lot of people trying to pull the film in different directions. And we see that a little bit here, as we mentioned, John Carpenter filmed scenes for this movie.
Which, actually, before you continue, I actually want to add something that's going to provide some information on this. I read on it was an article. Rosenthal was actually very one of the reasons why he was very mad that Carpenter came in and took over some of the scenes was because he had the movie perfectly planned out, shot perfectly, so it's in time, and then Carpenter just came in and ruined the timing completely.
Yeah, as I mentioned, Rosenthal had a more upbeat, kind of a hopeful ending with Jimmy and Laurie together. They're both in the ambulance holding hands. That would have been an interesting way to end it, and then possibly to see a sequel with them. But no, they cut that part out. The scene where it's in the very beginning of the film where the young woman gets stabbed. She's in the neighborhood that Laurie lives in, and after Michael Myers grabs the knife, he stalks the woman and then stabs her. That scene was filmed by John Carpenter. Another scene that John Carpenter filmed was when the young kid with the boombox bumps into Michael Myers. And their reasoning for that scene was that Michael Myers didn't know where Laurie was until he heard on the radio that she had been taken to the hospital. There are a couple other scenes, but I don't recall them off the top of my head. But still, I mean, it just would have been. I just think if they hired Rick Rosenthal to do the job. There are tons of other movies and other genres that have definitely not succeeded quality-wise because of production interference. Someday maybe we can go into superhero films, but Batman versus Superman and Justice League definitely suffered heavily because Zack Snyder, the director, had a vision for those films, and then Warner Brothers had a completely different vision, and they ended up interfering into the movie. And then obviously, as we see at the box office results, that those films failed. So again, here with Halloween 2, the production company should have just trusted Rick Rosenthal to make a film, and whether it was perfect or not, trust him to make it instead of interfering.
Right, so thanks, John Carpenter. If you wanted to be a part of the film, don't just write. How about you direct it yourself instead of taking over most of the scenes of this movie? I mean, it could have been a huge hit, but then you come in and, no offense, but put the dumbest scenes ever. I mean, again, this could have been a perfect hit.
Yeah, like as I mentioned before, the scene that I felt was just really stupid was Jimmy just passes out in the car, and then that's it. That's the end of his story. To me, that's worse than an off-screen kill, because it's like, we know that he could not have died from just hitting from slipping and hitting the back of his head like that. So.
Right, but there was one good thing they kept from the movie that John Carpenter did not fuck up. The beginning scene, where it was supposed to be similar to the original movie, but they added us going closer in. Instead of going through the eye of the pumpkin, it just splits open and we see a human skull.
Oh yeah, the opening credits are the best out of the whole series, I would say. And I wouldn't want to be too hard on Carpenter. I don't think he's the reason that that the movie suffered. But I just wish that he and the production company would have just trusted Rick Rosenthal a bit more. So.
Right, but again, you want to be a big part of the movie, why don't you just direct it yourself?
Yeah, it's actually kind of crazy. So John Carpenter wasn't really interested in doing part 2, but he said he would have done it, but he wanted to do The Fog first, and so he went off to go do The Fog. And those that were Mustafa Akkad and Erwin Yablans. Man, it is hard to say their names really fast, in my opinion. But anyways, they wanted to go ahead while, strike while the iron's hot. And, it was basically John Carpenter wanting to, have his cake and eat it too. He wanted them to wait, but then he also wanted to be involved with the film. And it's like, well, they didn't want to wait. They had a script. And here's the other thing. I heard all of the production team complaining about the script. If they hated the script so much, why didn't they just rewrite it?
Right.
So, yeah, I heard Erwin Yablans saying how it was a betrayal to the original film. Mustafa Akkad was like, no comment on it. He doesn't want to talk about Halloween 2. Tommy Lee Wallace felt again that the script was a betrayal to. But instead of them, why didn't they just correct it? So. Hopefully, the Halloween movie we get in October, will be faithful to the original film, but also be, perhaps it'll be the Halloween 2 that both the fans and the creators could be proud of.
Right. So, what should we rank this? What was that?
It's a good Halloween 1 at. We put Halloween 1 at.
We put 1 at 9.5.
Okay. I would put Halloween 2 at an 8. It's a good film, but I think that they could have done better with the sequel. One thing that we didn't even get into was the fact that our final girl was out
of character and out of most of the scenes.
Yeah, so that's another ding, if you will, another point I take off. It has excellent atmosphere, or incredible, as you mentioned in the opening credits, best opening sequence to the Halloween movies of any of them, but it just kind of loses some steam later on in the film. So I would go 8 for
Same.
me.
Because honestly, this is not the worst movie of the series, ladies and gentlemen. We'll get to that later on. Honestly, I don't know the worst because I haven't really seen them in a whole marathon. So yeah, we're gonna leave this as an 8. But next week we'll be getting down to Season of the Witch, also known as Halloween 3, which started and ended the whole anthology idea of this series.
Hello?
Hello? But until then, we'll see you guys on Wednesday for, we'll see you guys for, Final Destination 5. Hopefully, it'll be better than Part 4, also known as The Final Destination, and so yeah, until then, any final words, Cameron? Hold up, guys. I guess something's going terribly wrong with Cameron's computer because we lost connection to him, but I think I'll leave you guys with look out for your candy because we don't want you ending up like the little boy in the first scene of the hospital. And don't worry, guys. We're not all scary under this mask. Most of us are funny. The rest of us are a lot nicer. So yeah, don't forget to comment. Don't forget to like. Subscribe. And we're still waiting for those answers on what you want to do for the next paranormal movie. I'll post another poll for the net on Facebook. See what you guys really want to see. Because a lot of you have been saying demons. So we'll see you guys next week and Wednesday. So good night and remember to have a scary time. And watch the movie as a thank you to Rick Rosenthal for trying his hardest even under all the shit he's been put through. Good night and goodbye.